The Auburn Tigers seem in it for a 5-star quarterback.
You are Locked On Auburn, your daily podcast on the Auburn Tigers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Yes, welcome on into Locked On Auburn, your daily Auburn Tigers podcast. I'm your host, Zac Blackerby, and thank you so much for making Locked On Auburn your first listen every single day. Joining me as he does every single Monday, the Lindsay Crosby. You can find his Auburn baseball content over at thebarnauburn.com, as well as his new show, The Barn Podcast. What is it? The Barn
Baseball Show.
Thank you. Thank you. Auburn basketball keeps on winning. We'll touch on that, as well as which freshmen are we most likely to see on offense this year. But the big news that I guess came out Friday, the Auburn Tigers have a shot with Jared Curtis, the 5-star quarterback from the great city of Nashville, Tennessee.
I do like Nashville.
Yeah. No, anytime you get an official visit for a top prospect, you're in it. You've got a shot, because that means, hey, we've narrowed it down. These are the schools we're taking seriously. Mm-hmm. And Auburn has an official visit set for Curtis May 16th through the 18th. Hayes Fawcett reported that. Oregon is in early June. Georgia is in mid-June. And then South Carolina is the week after Georgia. And so as long as Hugh Freeze and this coaching staff get you in on an official visit, you've always got a shot. Lindsay, I'm skeptical. If I had to pick, does Auburn land Jared Curtis or not? I say no, the 5-star quarterback. But the fact that he continues to listen and this coaching staff keeps sending guys in for in-home visits, they've got a shot.
I mean, a lot, like, even if you've never seen him play, just a lot of the stuff around him is really exciting. He was the runner-up for Mr. Football as a freshman at 6'3", 215. Like, it's a freshman.
Yeah.
6'4", 225. Apparently, he's pretty good at, like, throwing the deep ball. It feels like the platonic ideal of an Auburn offense is, like, just, let the running backs eat and then just chucking it deep and just completing tons of passes. Mm-hmm. It's really exciting to think about bringing in a top quarterback into what would become even more of a most talented quarterback room in Auburn history.
Right.
Given who you already have in the room. And like you said, just getting him on campus, getting an official visit, all of that, that's super important, because we've seen what Auburn's able to do in those situations. Auburn sells itself. You just got to get the dudes here.
Yeah, and Hugh Freeze and Ken Austin, it sounds like those are the two coaches that are recruiting him, which makes sense, the head coach, and then obviously the position coach. I mean, it seems like they're kind of putting the full court press on Jared Curtis. And when Hugh Freeze makes somebody a priority, like, not every time, but most of the time, Auburn ends up with the kid. Is that going to be the case here? I don't know. Quarterback recruiting is so much different than every other position. And with the age of NIL and all that, like, it is more similar probably now than it used to be. But this is a kid who's taken his official visits early, all throughout the summer. You got to think that he's going to want to be committed to a school, earlier than when Auburn got Deuce Knight to flip from Notre Dame a year ago, or last calendar year anyway. So, like, that's good. There's going to be kind of, all of your chips are going to be on the table at that point. But it doesn't discount some of the points that we've discussed on this show before, Lindsay, and it's the timing aspect of this. Jared Curtis, let's just dream for a second and say he does pick Auburn. Well, okay, Jackson Arnold, like, unless he's just insanely good this year, which he could be, I'm not discounting that, but the most likely option is that Jackson Arnold returns to Auburn for another year. Mm-hmm. And then you have Deuce Knight as either a true sophomore or redshirt freshman. And then you would have Jared Curtis in this dream scenario as a true freshman. That's just a lot of money in the quarterback room, which is always going to happen from an NIL point of view. But that's a lot of money that's not playing, that's not expected to play unless something really bad happens to Jackson in that case. So to me, is that the best move? I don't know. I mean, of course, you always want to say, I want as many 5-star quarterbacks on the roster as possible. But it's just, can you keep 3 5-stars on the roster at the quarterback position?
It's not only that, but it's also, what does giving that NIL money to a 5-star quarterback keep you from doing at other positions on the roster? Like,
giving it to a high school kid
means that you get the advantage of building a class around that guy. Like we have heard before, we've talked on the show before about wide receivers who are interested in a school, but they want to know who's going to be throwing them the ball. They want to know who the quarterback is. And being able to say, hey, we've got 2 5-stars on campus.
Right.
We've got a 5-star coming in with you. You guys are going to room together. You guys are going to be best friends. It's going to help you build talent. Yeah. And to me, that's one of those things that can make up for when you get into the season, having that money sitting on the bench and not playing because of the other talent that came in around that player. It's different for like a portal guy, right? You pay a 5-star out of the portal, and for the most part, you're not building a portal class around that guy.
Right.
Do you think this is a situation where you can make up some of that? You can recoup some of that investment early in recruiting, and it's obviously easier to keep a kid usually than it is to get a kid in the first place. But it is tricky, and then there's the opportunity cost of what do you not have on the roster because you're paying 3 5-stars at quarterback.
Yeah, and I've seen this other place. I don't know if we've really talked about this a ton here because I don't love the narrative because I don't think it's great for the sport, but I do think it's true. Is like, okay, let's say he goes to Oregon or goes to Georgia or goes to South Carolina over Auburn, and things don't go right there, or if, a coach leaves or gets lets go, or somebody else hops him in the depth chart, or they go and get a transfer quarterback, whatever may cause him to enter the portal. And then it's like, oh, well, what if he enters the portal as a junior and maybe Auburn was a second or third choice and all of a sudden, like, they need a quarterback? Like, at that point, it makes sense. And so, like, do you just recruit all of these guys? And if you get second or third, you hope you have another shot at them a few years later? Like, I don't think that's out of the question anymore.
Yeah, I absolutely think you have to, like, quarterback's one of those relationship positions where, these kids have to be comfortable with the head coach, with the offensive staff. You have to do that groundwork now.
I think familiarity with the school too, like, the town. I mean,
especially because the portal's so fast paced.
Right. And it's like, oh, okay, well, it's like these two options are similar, NIL compensation similar. I've been here before and I liked it. Like, that's got to help somewhat.
Yeah, and so you're almost in a situation here. It's kind of devil's advocate. Like, you're damned if you do, because now you're paying money to a 5-star who's not on the field. You're damned if you don't, because you have to recruit these kids. But I will say, not everybody's getting this 5-star quarterback in for a visit. So that right there should make Auburn fans feel good. And then, like you said, even if they don't land him, it does give you an opening if he's open to transferring, which we've seen by now. Yeah. Most top quarterbacks end up being transfers.
That's just the way it is. That's just the way it is. And you can dream all you want, but it's like, you look at the quarterbacks in the national championship and a lot of them throughout the college football playoff.
The Heisman ceremony.
Yeah.
It's not every year is transfer.
That's what this is. And so, like, just the national trend is you don't really keep these guys, and then the second place that they go ends up being where they shine. Mm-hmm. And Auburn folks listening to that, please don't let that be Deuce. Please let Deuce be great here. But I mean, it's just kind of the nature of college football right now. It's very, very interesting.
Sometimes they do stay. I mean, we're not saying that Deuce is definitely going to leave,
right? But it's a reality that it's going to be here. It's like 3 5-star quarterbacks on the team at the same time. Like, that's interesting.
In the modern era of NIL, that doesn't work out.
Yeah, you just don't see it a whole lot anymore. Yeah. This will be his second visit to Auburn. He took an unofficial when we lost to Vandy last year. So hopefully it's a better trip than that one was.
At least he's willing to come back after.
It's like, oh, you're down to come back. Okay, we really do have a shot. You must have really liked it. It's like, yeah, I promise we could be better than that. I promise.
Yeah. What was the date for that again?
May 16th through the 18th is what Hayes tweeted out.
I wish it was a little bit earlier. Auburn baseball is on the road that weekend.
Always think about Auburn baseball. I love it.
Auburn at Ole Miss that weekend. Final weekend of the regular season.
Oh, this could be an important series. Which freshman is most likely to see the field this season? Lindsay and I have 2 different names. We may fight about it. Who knows? That's next, right here on Locked On Auburn. Today's show is brought to you by our friends at FanDuel. FanDuel's America's #1 sportsbook. Lindsay, Super Bowl 59 is here. 1 game, 2 teams, endless possibilities with all the props And can you imagine wagering anywhere other than with our friends at FanDuel?
I absolutely couldn't. I would never dream of it.
No.
There's like FanDuel, it's America's #1 sportsbook for a reason.
That's right. That's right. Download the app or head to FanDuel.com to get started. Bet $5, and if you win, you'll score $200 in bonus bets. That's all at FanDuel.com. Bet with FanDuel, the official partner of Super Bowl 59 and the Locked On Podcast Network. Thank you so much for making Locked On Auburn your first listen every single day. Obviously, a lot of excitement about this freshman class. Could be one of the best recruiting classes in recent memory for the Auburn Tigers. And there's so many big names on both sides of the football. And like we talk about Deuce Knight and all the excitement, and it's hard to have a conversation about the future of Auburn without including Deuce Knight in it. Mm-hmm. But I don't think he's the freshman that has the clearest path to playing time. And you and I have different names here. I'll go first. I think Ryan G has a pretty clear path to playing time. And it's not just because he comes on the show a good bit. I just think when you look at the other positions, I just think there's more in front of them. I mean, Deuce Knight going into spring, assumed QB3. I do think he has a really solid shot to hop Ashton Daniels when it's all said and done. But at wide receiver, the wide receivers coming in, Derek and Eric Smith and Sam Turner, like I just don't see them coming in and being like a major part of the offense. And then I think it's a battle between Ryan G and Hollis Davidson at tight end. And like, I don't believe in Rico Walker a ton, but I do believe in Preston Howard.
Right.
And so if they do go to the portal to add more tight ends after the spring, I think they'll get a receiving tight end. And you're like blocking tight ends, like your Luke Deal, like type tight ends, like you've got Brandon Frazier. And in the past, we've played multiple of those guys. And so like, I think Ryan G plays. I think Ryan G's path to playing time is the clearest of all the true freshmen on offense.
See, so you're wrong. Do you know how many running backs had carries last year for Auburn?
I assume, all of them did.
5. Yeah. 5 different running backs had carries for Auburn. Jarquez obviously had a lot, Alston and Cobb, but Justin Jones got, I believe, 24 yards. Sean Jackson got 3 carries. And so,
yeah, but those guys didn't play relevant snaps. I mean, we're talking about relevant snaps here.
I know. But I do think that you've got Damari Alston, Jeremiah Cobb. That's your two-headed monster at the top of the depth chart. And then after that, Justin Jones, I don't think is a real candidate to get a lot of playing time. Mm-hmm. He had like the 1 carry. I think Alvin Henderson is absolutely going to be in the mix as a change of pace guy. Now, whether or not he'll succeed in that role kind of remains to be seen. He is moving up significantly in competition level. He's on a lower classification there.
So how many touches did RB4 get last year? Who was our 4th back when it came to touches last year?
Let me see.
If you have that in front of you, it sounds like you do.
Yeah. We really didn't use the 4th that much.
I mean, I feel like we didn't use our 3rd one. Like, I feel like we didn't use Cobb.
I was about to say it was Hunter with 187. Alston with 52 and Cobb with 29. But I don't see either of those 2 existing guys taking Jarquez's workload. I do think you'll use RB3 more. And so it's just down, can Alvin figure it out? And I personally think the learning curve at running back is so much smaller than the learning curve at tight end. And granted, it's a different role at tight end, but it feels like
I agree with that.
Like you're going to have to find a 3. And it feels like the adjustment to the SEC and to college football isn't as tough for a running back because it's here's the ball, go that way. Whereas tight ends, you're trying to block, you're trying to catch, all of this stuff. It's a lot more work. So that's why I have the correct answer of Alvin Henderson.
I don't think it's a bad one. Can Alvin steal some touches away from Darrell Robinson? Like, what does that battle look like? The transfer back from UConn.
From Connecticut. Sophomore, right? Yeah.
So Damari Alston, Jeremiah Cobb, like, do all of these guys stay? I mean, I hope they do.
Yeah.
And Hugh Freeze was asked by Daryl down in Mobile, like, what's the plan? What's the plan to make sure both of these guys are happy coming out of spring? And he kind of laughed. He said, I don't know. It's like, I hope that was just coach speak, because if he doesn't have a plan, you're going to lose one of them. That's just my thought. That's just my thought on it.
Do you think that Jackson Arnold or whoever your quarterback is is going to run 112 times this year, because that's how many times Peyton Thorne ran last year.
I hope he runs more.
That kind of that also complicates things too, because then because
Peyton ran it 112 times and he missed a game and a half.
Yeah. He averaged 2.5 yards a carry, by the way, although that does count, obviously, defensive, sacks and things like that. But still,
quarterback rushing numbers are so skewed.
So weird, but 112.
Yeah. Yeah. I would love for Jackson to get 8 or 9 touches or rushes a game. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it still feels to me like, yes, like, Ryan G can get on the field, but what kind of meaningful role is the second or third blocking tight end going to have in the season versus your change of pace back who could break a touchdown, do a lot of work like that? And so it's
impact versus like total plays. I mean, I don't know. Like, I think Ryan G has the most snaps of freshman offensive players.
Are we making a bet on this? Are we putting stakes on this? If you have ideas, if you're watching on YouTube, leave it in the comments down below.
Yeah, what needs to be at stake here? Well, yeah, what should be our bet? Does
Zach have to let me do a whole baseball show here? I don't know. Like,
that's fine. You're gonna be doing it at the barn. Might as well do one here too. No, yeah, check. Let us know. Let us know what our bet should be. Is the bet more total impact, or we're just gonna be subjective about it, or is it just total plays?
You said meaningful, so I think that means impact. We have to discuss the impact into the year.
That's fine.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Great. Yeah. Let us know down low what we should bet, and let us know what you think. Alvin, Henderson, Ryan G, or somebody else. Somebody else. I'd love to hear the argument for somebody else, because
John McGuire, the punter.
Yeah.
The backup punter.
Yeah. It's like, I think Hudson's got that one, so we'll see.
Yeah.
We'll see. Okay. Auburn basketball keeps on winning. They keep on winning, and they keep finding ways to blow us away. That's next, right here on Locked On Auburn. Today's show is brought to you by our friends at Alumni Hall. Can you imagine buying Auburn gear anywhere other than Alumni Hall, Lindsay Crosby?
I would not think of it. Every bit of Auburn gear that I have, Alumni Hall.
Alumni Hall. They got 3 great physical locations in Auburn, Opelika, and Huntsville, and also online at alumnihall.com. Make sure you're ready for a little basketball tournament action. They've got all the comfort colors and Cutter and Buck, all of the great brands of apparel that you know and love. They've got you covered over at Alumni Hall, and it could be basketball. I'm sure they're going to start putting baseball stuff out soon because the season's very close. Softball, football's out all the time, of course. So check them all out at Alumni Hall, online at alumnihall.com, or any of their 3 great physical locations. Thank you so much for making Locked On Auburn your first listen every single day. Lindsay, you filled in for me. You and Dap did an outstanding job breaking down.
Yes. I have to fix. Okay. Lindsay Crosby, big basketball guy. All right, let's go. I had to change my display name here. Yeah,
Thank
here we
you.
go.
I'm glad that you did. I'm glad that you did.
Thank you.
No, you and Daryl did a great job reacting to the game. If you missed that, it's up on YouTube, or it's also up on this audio feed if you're tuning in via audio. To me, the biggest thing is like different guys stepped up in different moments when they needed to. And that's what great teams did. That's what Ole Miss talked about, to the media after the game. And to me, that's exactly what we saw. Janai, Brew making those threes going into half to give yourself a lead. And then Ole Miss got it close. And then Chad Baker Mazara is like, no, we're closing this thing. We're going to close this thing. And there's nothing you can do about it. And to me, like the run that Chad Baker Mazara had in the final few minutes, making multiple threes, to me, that was like, yeah, okay, it was his turn to step up, and he seized it.
Yeah, like you kind of look at how the run, because like this whole thing's based on runs, right? But the whole thing is like Auburn never panicked. Ole Miss had the 7-0 run. Auburn turned around and went 8-0. Auburn never gave up a kill shot, by the way, kind of big there. There was a whole 9-2 thing from Ole Miss. Cardwell had a layup. Kelly hit a 3-pointer. And then Ole Miss, brought it to a 1-possession game. That was the CBM pair of threes. The alley-oop from Denver Jones to Pettiford.
Electric.
And then, it's just kind of, it's one of those things that they never really blinked. And it feels like, correct me if I'm wrong, it feels like they almost play better on the road when they're in that hostile environment.
It's been hit or miss, man. It's been hit or miss. Like, I mean, I think that was the case Saturday. I mean, they scored 92 points on the road against a pretty good team. They look They looked rough
LSU.
down the stretch against Texas.
Yeah.
They looked rough in the first half against South Carolina. They looked rough down the stretch in Athens. But like when it is crunch time, like they have won in all of these situations so far. Some of it was self-inflicted and you had a big lead and you let folks back in. And some of it is you played so bad to start out and you had to like, dig yourself out of the hole. But they have found ways to win. And that's all you can really ask for.
Something I don't quite think that I realized on Saturday doing that post-game show, Auburn went 14-28 from three, 50% from three.
It's insane.
When I was kind of, talking with my wife about like, hey, what's the sign of like a really good day? It's like 50% from the floor, 40% from three, 90% from the line. Auburn went 14-28. And it's the thing that makes me feel good. They struggled in that respect against Tennessee. They struggled in that respect against LSU. And then when they played against an Ole Miss team that's really good defensively, but doesn't have a lot of size, Janai Broom's able to get room down low, although he didn't score a lot in the second half early. And then because of that, it gave him opportunities to get out to the line and get threes. And it kind of feels like it was a little bit of that Final Four team vibes where they could just put up a three at will, sink buckets, get daggers, and put teams away. And that's kind of what it felt a little bit like on Saturday. Not saying it's the Final Four team, but it's what it felt like at times, all those threes.
Yeah, I like that. So they play again Tuesday night, freaking 8 p.m. tip. The number one team in the country should not be playing at 8 o'clock at night on a Tuesday. I'm just saying. But against Oklahoma, a team that isn't great, they won this past weekend, I think.
They won big, yeah, I think.
I'm trying to remember who they played. Was it Vanderbilt? I think it was Vanderbilt.
Yeah, I think so.
Because Vanderbilt got ranked, and then Oklahoma beat them, and it's like, oh, okay, all right. Look that up. Correct me if I'm wrong there. But a big week at home here with hosting Oklahoma on Tuesday and then hosting Florida Saturday afternoon.
97-67 over Vanderbilt.
Is Vandy? Okay, gotcha.
Yeah. Daryl sent me that screenshot, and I forgot about it. Yeah.
Yeah, just like what a crazy weekend in SEC basketball. And it's just, I want to remind folks, like, not all these wins are sexy. Not all these wins are, stellar, put people on a poster and, broadcast it to the world, but they're wins. And you look throughout the SEC and it's like Kentucky lost to Arkansas. I know there's some storylines and a lot of emotion there with the Cal stuff, but
still,
yeah, it was in Rupp, if I'm not mistaken, right? Because Cal went and went home or whatever.
Yeah.
But like you saw this Georgia team that was supposedly good get just blown out by Alabama. And you've seen so much inconsistency elsewhere throughout, all of these really good teams in the conference and even throughout college basketball. I mean, Iowa State's fallen off a cliff right now. And so I just want to remind folks, like, Auburn's still winning. And I don't really care what it looks like all the time. It looked fine against Ole Miss. Like they won by 10. It didn't feel like we won by 10 until that late run. But I just want to remind folks, like, it doesn't matter what it looks like all the time. Sometimes it's just find a way to win and go home. And that's what this team continues to do.
I mean, at this point, they're one win away from, I think it's tying the SEC record for quad one wins in a season. They have 13 right now, and I believe
some of those are going away though. Like,
yeah, with guys with teams that keep.
I don't think Mississippi State's quad one anymore. LSU may fall out if they lose another one or two, and then there's somebody else that's close that's down there that I'm trying to remember. So I'm curious to see what that looks like, and obviously they'll add more. They'll have a chance against Florida. They'll have a chance on the road at Vandy. Then obviously to Alabama. It's going to be insane. It's going to be insane for sure. So Georgia might be the other one that can drop out. I'm not positive, but we'll see. We'll definitely keep tracking that stat for sure. But yeah, folks say like, oh, they've won the 13th one again. It's because somebody dropped out. So, Lindsay, you launched something really cool last week. Tell folks where they can find it, what it is, and all that stuff.
Yeah, over on the Barn Auburn's YouTube page. It's where Village Vice is you and Brad Law. Brad Law, and Auburn baseball legend Sonny DeShera have a baseball show now. The Barn Baseball Show, a couple times a week. First episode came out last Friday. as of the time that this is dropping, we will be recording with an Auburn baseball player to drop on Tuesday.
Fun.
We're going to have other interviews with players, coaches as well, breakdowns, previews, all kind of stuff you can expect from Brad, from Sonny, who's obviously a savant when it comes to hitting. We saw what he did in the SEC. And then somehow I'm in there too, which is great. So the Barn, Auburn.
If you care about Auburn baseball, there's not a better panel out there. There's just not. There's just not. Yeah, the first one was fantastic. I can't wait for more. So yeah, go over to the Barn on YouTube and subscribe, and you'll also see my other show with Brad Law, as well as Kyle's show, Charlie 5 show, the Top Button podcast. So be sure to check that out. Please like the video here. Please subscribe. We'll see you next time. This has been Locked On Auburn.